Hey guys, it's Melissa Moore. Thanks for joining me for today's episode of Faith, Hope, Love, where we grow together in our faith, increase in hope, and learn how to better love God and love other people. So today's episode, we're taking a short break from the Life and Teachings of Jesus series. If you've been following my show for a while, we've been doing this Life and Teachings of Jesus series for quite a while now, and pretty much the whole length that this podcast has been out. And so we're going to do somewhat of a series inside of a series, focusing on the lives of Mary and Martha. I have talked about the different healings that Jesus has done, some of his teachings, as well as the different people that he interacted with. And from what I have come to understand of reading the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, is that a lot of what Jesus did was done in relationship. And so I want to take a couple weeks just to really unpack this relationship that Jesus had with these two women, Mary and Martha. So we're going to take the next several weeks just to kind of dive into their lives and just a couple different accounts that talk about Jesus' interactions with them. And so these episodes are going to be a little bit shorter just so that you can just have little like bite-sized pieces of what Jesus kind of tells us through the way he interacted with these two women. So I'm really excited to share from their lives with you. And I would love for you just to kind of listen a little bit and see maybe if you identify more with Mary or more with Martha as we take a look at the very beginning of their relationship with Jesus. Let's jump on in. All right, so this week we're going to take a look at the first encounter that Jesus has with these two women in Luke chapter 10. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about two encounters that happen in the book of John. And so as we take a look here, this is a pretty controversial situation. Pretty much everything that Jesus did was pretty controversial, and just like the way that he attacked normal things that were happening in society, the cultural norms of the day. In this one specifically, it was very unlikely and basically totally forbidden that a woman would listen to a rabbi teaching, just sitting at his feet. That just like wasn't a thing that was done. And so this is, again, a totally foreign concept in this time. This should not have happened the way that it did. But Jesus kind of came in, decided, hey, I'm going to show people what the world is supposed to look like. And this is a little taste as to what Jesus values and what we should value. So in Luke chapter 10, starting at verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and said, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." So as we look at this passage, there's a few pretty key things that are happening here. So first of all, when it's introduced that Jesus is going to go to someone's home, it says Martha's home. You'll find out in the next episode, we're going to talk about the fact that these two sisters had a brother named Lazarus. Back in that day, it was more normal for someone to say the rabbi was going to the male, the head of the household's house. It was not as common, but we see here that Martha's the one that invited Jesus. And she essentially said, I'm gonna take you and your disciples in. I'm gonna feed you guys. We'll take care of you. She was showing him honor and respect by welcoming him into her home. And we see here that Martha, she's decided to do this, and she's kind of essentially assumed that her sister Mary would be helping, which again, women were in the kitchen. That was the norm then. And we see a little problem here. Instead of being in the kitchen with Martha, Mary has decided to sit at the feet of Jesus, listening to him. Again, not only is that like a weird thing, women would not have been sitting at the feet of a rabbi, listening to his teaching, because rabbinic teaching was only for the men, essentially. And Jesus totally flipped that ideal on its head. He not only spoke to men, but also to women and children. Totally, totally different than what would have been normal practice for rabbis at that time. And rabbi, if you're not familiar, just means teacher. And so we see that Mary is just at the feet of Jesus. There's no context as to if Jesus told her to go ahead and sit and listen, or if she just kind of started off in the corner of the room and slowly inched her way forward. There's no backstory as to how she got there. But all that we see is that this woman is in the wrong place in the room. She's supposed to be in the kitchen cooking and preparing this meal for the men, but instead she's at the feet of Jesus. And Jesus says to Mary, hey, you're welcome here. And when Martha comes in and she says, whoa, you need to be helping, she confronts Jesus and says, hey, tell my sister to get up off the floor and get to work because, I want to serve you. Now, Martha's heart was not in the wrong place. She was desiring to serve God, to serve Jesus. And she was, in a lot of ways, she was doing what was right and good and holy and really a wonderful thing that she was doing. And there's nothing wrong with serving God. But Jesus essentially tells her, look, what you're doing is good, but Mary's chosen the better thing. And so maybe if you're out there like myself, kind of hearing this story and feeling more like that Martha, where you're just busy, go, and you feel like you're doing a lot of stuff, but you feel tired and exhausted, I can imagine that's the desperation that Martha's coming to Jesus with. She's tired and she needs help. She needs help to feed these 13 plus people that have come into her home. She needs the help from Mary. And so there's a very real aspect to what she's going through. She just wants help. And her heart is in the right place. She wants to do the right thing. She wants to serve Jesus, the Son of God. She knew who he was. She knew how respected he was. And she was doing what any good Jewish woman would do. She's serving and being hospitable. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing to show hospitality and to care for people and bring people in your home and to feed people. That's a beautiful thing to serve others. But Jesus is saying here, look, what your sister Mary is doing is even better. She is not just doing something for me. She is literally at my feet. And that's showing honor and respect. But she's just spending time in the presence of God. And Jesus says that is even better than serving God. And so maybe I'm talking to you, maybe you are wired more like Martha, right? Maybe you're a busy person and you want to do all these things for God or for your community, but you're feeling tired. I'm speaking to myself right now because I'm that kind of person. Before recording this, I had to take time just to sit in God's presence because I am so achievement and focused minded that I can sometimes skip over that. And I can jump into studying and teaching God's word without spending time in his presence. And that's a pity, you guys. That's not how it should be. And this passage has called me out so many times because Jesus is saying to Martha, and maybe to you and also to me, what Mary has chosen is better. Spending time with Jesus, with God, is so crucial. If we're going to be people that are out trying to serve our communities and our churches and our families, if we are not first spending time with God, we are going to be exhausted. We're going to be cranky. We're going to be frustrated. And we're going to be irritated at other people. And that's not what Jesus wants for us. Jesus doesn't just want our actions. He doesn't just want our service. Jesus wants us. Jesus wants you. He wants me. He wants our hearts. He doesn't just want the things that we can do for him. If our whole lives we spend doing things for God, but we don't ever spend time with God, what a waste. We're missing out on the very beauty of what Jesus is. That he came to earth, died on the cross because of his deep, deep love for us, so that we could have a healed relationship with him and with God the Father. If we spend our whole lives running ragged and not spending time with God, guys, we're missing the whole point. And so I don't know, what you're going through today. Maybe you just feel exhausted like I do. And I think the reason that I feel that exhaustion so much is because I don't take the time to just stop and be in God's presence. So really, just to sum up, what I'm getting from this passage is Jesus cared so much for these two women. He cared for them tremendously. He loved them. And this is the first day that he met them. And he comes to them and he essentially says, the service is great, but your being in my presence is better. And so this is going to be a shorter episode. I just want to give a little bit of space to you right now. I'm just going to have 2 extra minutes here at the end of this episode with just a little bit of music and just some time for you just to spend time with God. Whatever that looks like for you, however you feel comfortable doing that. I know for myself, a lot of that is me just literally being on my knees on the floor, just my eyes closed with a little bit of music, or dancing in my living room. That's a big way that I connect with God in addition to studying His Word. That's how I worship. And so whatever that looks like for you, to just be in the presence of God with no preconceived things on your to-do list that you have to get done for Him or for yourself or for your family. Just spend 2 minutes right now just being in the presence of God, basking in His love for you. Regardless of the things that you've gone through this week, God loves you so, so much. And He just wants to be with you. So before we finish out this episode, just take a few minutes just to sit in the presence of God. And I will see you back here next week for the second episode of the Mary and Martha series. Have a great week, you guys.